The story begins as we see that a half-naked masked man just defeated a monster. A creepy girl that probably had a few too many energy drinks watched nearby and celebrates that the Dark Lord was defeated. The luchador-looking guy proudly watches as the beast vanishes and the sun emerges from behind the clouds. His name is Sunraku, and the weird girl once again praises the warrior. She points out how it's been a long hard journey, and Sunraku couldn't agree more. Sunraku then surprisingly takes to the sky and exclaims that it's time for Faeria to go with the Dark Lord. He then does her a huge favor by rearranging her hideous face with his foot and tells her that she's the real menace in this world. We see that Sunraku was actually in a game. He proudly proclaims that he finally beat it and also managed to get revenge for everything that Gargoyle put him through. In this world, display-based games are considered retro and fully immersive VR games have become the norm. Beneath the small number of works of significance lies a massive pile of releases whose games designs don't live up to their improved graphics technology. These games are known as trash games. Although most people rightfully despise trash games, there are those who gleefully seek them out, and these people are called freaks. Our protagonist named Rakuro is one of these freaks, and he proclaims that rumors were true and the game he just played was a giant pile of garbage. Rakuro compares the feeling he gets from beating a trash game to how a convict feels when finishing up her prison sentence. This psycho then wonders what trash game he will try next, and we learn that he is known as the Trash Game Hunter. When he heads downstairs, we learn that his mom is kind of a weirdo too, as Rakuro tells her that one of her butterflies got out. At school, some random girl stalks Rakuro and practices what she plans to say to him. She decides to ask about video games and waits for the perfect moment, but some other kid beats her to it. At a game shop, the owner named Mana Iwamaki hopes that summer vacation will help bring her more business. Rakuro's stalker named Rei Saiga arrives at the shop. Mana knows exactly why she is there, but tells Rei that Rakuro isn't there today. Rei is too shy to admit to it, but Mana points out how nice it must be to be young and in love. Mana explains that Rakuro has been busy trying to crack an extra special trash game, so he hasn't been there in a while. She shows her the game called Faeria Chronicle Online. It states that it's a legendary trash game. All the allies in the game have terrible AI, enemy attack patterns don't make any sense, and there are an absurd number of bugs in the code. The game is also extremely hard. Serious skills are needed even just to beat the first boss, so it has caused tons of players to rage out of control, throwing their headsets like lunatic degenerates. On top of all that, she has also heard that players have to fight the final boss and board shorts and a mask. Just then Rakuro arrives looking for any new trash games that might have come out. He makes his way to the counter, and we learn that Rei is an absolute coward as she instantly disappears. Mana is shocked to see him there, and Rakuro proudly announces that he beat Faeria Chronicle Online. Rei watches from around the corner like the stalker she is and hears Rakuro explain that the game was a spectacular pile of garbage. The worst part about it was the female lead Faeria. She's the cause of pretty much every problem he ran into on the journey. She makes every situation worse and gets villagers and party members killed. She also never suffered any consequences for anything, since you would always find a way to blame it all on the last boss, even though the boss didn't do anything and she was a problem all along. Rakuro continues to trash the trash game as he explains that if he ever gave Faeria even the tiniest little shove to vent his annoyance, she would just get upset. She would not go with them anywhere and refuse to move the story along. The autosave Word document to the state of affairs, and it would take 3 hours to get back in the cycle's good graces. Mana's surprised that he didn't just give up, which makes sense since he would be able to get an actual life, but he explains that that's how they get you. In the 3 minutes between beating the final boss and before the credits start rolling, you can beat the snot out of the crazy girl without fear of retaliation. Rakuro points out the irony, since the more Faeria annoys you, the more determined you become to brave all the garbage to experience the 3 minutes of heaven. This guy clearly takes trash games way too seriously, as he states that when that moment of bliss finally comes, it's as if all his frustrations are wiped away. In that moment, he felt like he understood why he was put on this earth. For some reason, Rei is smiling like a creep while hearing this, and Rakuro explains that the trash game was too good. Now he can't think of what to follow it up with. Mana comes up with the absurd idea to not play a trash game for once. She explains that experiencing the lows in life can help appreciate the highs, but the reverse is also true. Mana then introduces him to the game Shangri-La Frontier, the fully immersive VR game with over 30 million players. She continues to convince them and gives Rei a not-so-subtle wink for some reason. She explains that it can be fun to try things designed for mass appeal now and then. Rakuro seems to give it some serious thought. Back home we find that Rakuro's dedication to his gaming experience reaches dangerously high nerd levels as he studies the history of the game. He finds that Shangri-La Frontier aka SLF on in the market less than a year ago, and instead of Guinness World Record for simultaneous player logins, the concept is a colony fleet that came from space died out but not before leaving a new society behind. Thousands of years later, the PCs are living their lives at roughly medieval tech levels. This piece is interesting as it's a setup that allows for effortless inclusion of sci-fi elements. Rakuro seems to be getting convinced, since unlike Faeria, which is so bad the hitters find themselves desperately searching for redeeming features, this game is so beloved that his few haters are completely drowned out by tens of thousands of fans. Rakuro puts down his gamer fuel and decides to try the game out. We then learn a bit about the company that made the game, called Utopia Entertainment Software. It was founded by the genius programmer Tsukuyo Tsukuri, who developed a fully immersive VR game system. It's a leader in the fields of software development, hardware, and internet service provision. Rakuro puts on his virtual reality headset and wonders how long it's been since he played something that wasn't trash. The game begins with character creation and Rakuro amazed by how many options there are for classes. He chooses a twin-blade mercenary for its flexibility and then moves on to origin. He reads that wanderers build defense slowly but get bonuses to luck. Luck affects critical chance and item drop rate, so he decides to go with that. Things begin to get really exciting when he finds how many options there are to character customization, as it allows him to even change race and body type. He makes some really strange noises as he gets a bit too excited, and he reminds himself to calm down. Rakuro realizes that he has been so poisoned by trash games that he is now getting blown away by silly small stuff. Seemingly forgetting about what he just said, Rakuro excitedly states that it's time to go hardcore on character design for the first time in forever. We then surprisingly see that his finished character design looks a bit strange, but it at least saves us the pain of having to look at his ugly face. He is not to be mistaken as a half-naked furry, since he actually has a very good reason for doing this. We learn that his playstyle consists of ignoring armor in favor of getting the best weapons possible. These weapons are costly, of course, but in SLF amazingly you're given the option to sell your starter equipment during character creation and you can make quite a profit. Rakuro thankfully he wanted to hide his face and the only option was the dumb-looking bird mask. He had no choice as it would be pretty awkward for him to play half-naked if everyone could see his face. Rakuro is the type of player who uses the same name in every game he plays, so he inputs the name Sunraku. He lays down on his bed and finally enters the game. He skips right past the prologue because who actually cares, and arrives in the world of the god-tier game to find one of his kind. It flies away and Sunraku immediately impressed, since moving around feels pretty much like real life. He tests everything by running and climbing through the area and points out how much better everything feels compared to the game with the disgustingly hideous girl in it. Sunraku marvels at how large the world is and pulls out a map. He wonders why he didn't start out in a tutorial town for beginners like most games, and doesn't realize that those who choose Wanderer as their origin start out at a random point in the beginner's area. He decides to head to the starting town, but once again admires how good the controls feel. He checks his stats and acknowledges that his low defense is because of his half-nakedness, but hopes that his high luck stat will make up for it. Just then he's surprised to be attacked so soon as he encounters a goblin. Sunraku refuses to be a half-naked coward and decides that it's time to see what the game's combat engine is made of. The brave little goblin initiates the fight, but probably regrets all his life decisions as Sunraku uses a powerful attack to slice him in half. Sunraku impresses himself, but acknowledges that that goblin was just a scrub enemy in the intro. It does level him up though, and he sees that this axe can be dual-wielded. Something moves and some bushes nearby, and Sunraku thinks about how there's a lot to learn in the game, like monster weaknesses, patterns, and item drops. He states that whether it's a trash game or god-tier game, everyone gets the feeling he's getting now. The elation of diving headfirst into a new world, it's something that can't be found in real life. His enemy finally emerges from the bushes and just barely misses his attack on Sunraku. The attack was extremely powerful and he acknowledges that it would have put him down if it hit him. The terrifying bunny goes in for another attack, but this time her crew blocks it and he counters while landing a critical hit. Bugs Bunny with rabies is far too determined though and continues attacking. Sunraku is disappointed with what this game has to offer, and we see that he has pierced the bunny. He explains that the bunny just kept going for his neck, so it was far too easy to figure out how to counter it. He is glad to see that he has leveled up even more, but disappointed to not see the rabbit sword as loot. Just then his stat screen reveals that he has met a certain condition and learned the skill flash counter. Apparently he can unlock skills by taking certain actions, so Sunraku takes a moment to appreciate how well designed the game is. He realizes that since the player's own skill supplements their dodges and parries, he can fight pretty well against even higher level enemies. This makes him want to try a bunch of different fighting styles. His appreciation doesn't stop there though, as Sunraku realizes that he has been playing this entire time without encountering a single bug. We then watch all the previous bugs he had to deal with, such as the hitbox bug, the clipping bug, and the infamous invisibility bug. He expresses excitement as he wasn't sure if he could enjoy a bug-free game after all this time, but it's sure now that he can really have a good time with it. Sunraku heads out in search of another rabies bunny but suffer a moment to completely destroy an ogre. He levels up again and decides that he should probably allocate his stat points. He wishes that the Vorpal bunny would spawn more often but realizes that it must be a rare enemy. He still managed to kill 50 of them and get his sweet-looking dual swords. He also learned some new skills but states that only one of them is worth using. Sunraku decides to move forward though, since he's not going to gain any more levels with the scrub tier monsters around there. He has strayed too far away from the starter town but sees that he's close to another town aptly named Secondale. He makes his way there but sees there a snake with ponytails is blocking a bridge. Sunraku, relieved to finally have a real challenge, and prepares to fight to stylish serpent. Don't let the poor hair design fool you. This piece is actually very powerful as it is the area boss that is meant to be fought by a party. Sunraku takes a moment to think about all the attacks a snake usually has in games. He states that with an avatar that actually moves the way he wanted to, he doesn't need defenses to beat the boss, and he charges forward. He demands that the game give him something exciting, and we see that Sunraku is enjoying himself quite a bit. The story continues at the exit of a nearby town. Several people look at something in amazement. Their jaws drop and we see that it's someone wearing gigantic armor. This is the starting town first here. The townspeople see that this person has high-level equipment and a crest from an achievement-focused clan. The clueless bunch wonder what someone like that is doing there, and we can tell by the voice that it's a girl. She checks all the names of the people in front of her and reminds herself that Sunraku gives all his characters the same name. He's in there though, which is strange since all starting players come to first tier. Back in real life, we see that Sunraku's stalker knows no bounds, as it was her looking for him in the game. Back with her pigeon-faced hero, he begins his attack on the snake with her soul mesmerizing. It's as if it was stolen from an angel. Sunraku decides to watch its patterns and dodges a few of its attacks. The genius gamer determines that it's still a boss for beginners. Its movements are easy to read and it won't have any instant kill moves. The glass cannon realizes that he can beat this thing without taking a hit, since even one hit would kill him anyway. Sunraku masterfully dodges another attack, but his weapon shatters. He knew their ability was getting low but can't believe it just broke on the first hit. He sees that Princess Ponytails has tough scales and decides that it's time to try out his sweet blood blades. Sunraku goes in for an attack while quipping that he's going to make snake fillets, but is surprised by some purple stuff spewed out by the ponytail python. His first thought is that it might be poop, but a display reveals that it's poison and he will take damage every 10 seconds. Featherface realizes that he might have underestimated the snake and its beautiful flowing head of hair. Our god of trash games tells us Snake that he has beaten trash cans with mechanics way cheaper than this, and a little poop flinging won't be enough to get him down. Sunraku thinks about how the poison deals some 1 damage every 10 seconds, which means he has about 4 minutes left, so he will need a reliable way to land critical if he wants to beat it. Our Birdman uses his bird brain to determine that criticals in this game don't trigger at random. They seem to trigger when an attack is landed in an ideal way or when an enemy is hit in the weak point. The snake isn't just fashionable, its body is covered in super tough scales, so he concludes that its weak point has to be its head. The snake, super protective of its stylish hair, blocks his attack, making Sunraku realize that landing an attack on its head won't be easy. Instead, he decides to make his own weak point and uses the move Screw Pierce to pierce its body. He continues to attack the hole he made, and this absolute god gamer states that the defensive properties of a wounded section change, allowing criticals to trigger there. The snake dramatically screams in pain with this beautiful head of hair flowing through the wind like it's in a shampoo commercial. Sunraku hacks away as his time is running out, but he has no clue how much HP the snake has and isn't sure if he will make it. He is pushed back, and Sunraku now realizes that beating trash games online made him pretty cocky. When he initially entered this mass appeal game for casuals, this cocky peacock thought that he would be able to know his things easily and wouldn't have to use recovery items. He was just being arrogant though, and the state consumes him. Sunraku isn't done yet and uses his flash counter move. Sunraku takes the upper hand by grabbing onto a lock of its hair that is so beautiful it rivals that of a unicorn's tail. One last piercing screw to its face causes its head to explode, and we say goodbye to the hair salon loving serpent. Sunraku couldn't be happier as he levels up after defeating the old poop snake. His look is good enough to fetch a good price, but he notices that his health is still dropping. He has no time to distribute his attribution points and just dumps it all into stamina and agility. The bird starts to fly back to town to buy an antidote, but realizes he doesn't know where the shops are and is certain he won't make it in time. He can't even register his respawn points since he doesn't know where the ends are yet, but he has no choice but to run as fast as he can like he's on a wild goose chase. At the time, we see that a guy named Reiji is ecstatic that after 3 months of trying, he finally got the girl he's crushing on to start playing as a left with him. Her name is Mia. This Romeo has maneuvered himself into the role of the advice-giving veteran and won't let this chance pass him by. Unfortunately, his intimate encounter is interrupted by a raging lunatic and Mia thinks that it's a monster. Reiji points out that it has a name, so it must be a player. This crazy girl thinks she should kill it anyway, but Reiji points out that killing other players puts the skull in front of your name. The murderous psychopath considers it but decides against it, and they wonder if the bird got hit with a poison poop. Reiji tells him where the inn is, but explains that the respawn point will only register once he gets in bed. At the inn, the receptionist is talking way too calmly as she points out all the amenities they have to offer, so our frantic hero rushes her. Sunraku finally makes it to his bed to register his respawn point, but the poison hasn't been cured and he dies. Sunraku returns to reality where he is disappointed to have died, but glad he didn't lose any items. He decides that he will have to thank the guy that helped him, but for now just appreciates how awesome the game SLF is. Our god of trash games eventually arrives in Secondal in search of necessities like a map and recovery items. The bird thinks he should buy a powerful main weapon to help him reach his goal of hitting the top player ranks, but soon realizes that perverts are staring at him for being half naked, and he makes the right decision by going to get clothes first. He just gets the cheapest clothes he can buy since it's only to keep people from looking at him weird, but then strangely decides that his bird head is less weird looking than a mask. At a weapon shop, Sunraku doesn't like what it has to offer, and the weapons or guy points out the Sunraku's bunny daggers are actually very rare. Sunraku becomes excited however when the man explains that he can make him weapons, but he would have to get the materials. Our little pigeon wastes no time and Inslee has Swan area with plenty of ore. However, he gets his feathers all flustered as he just ends up mining stone after stone. He is frustrated since he has been swinging his pickaxe for at least 30 minutes but only has 2 of the 6 pieces of ore he needs. As if he didn't have enough to worry about with all the mud and heavy pickaxe, an annoying frog appears to do what frogs do. This poor frog messed with the wrong bird. This little frog swims in the mud like it thinks it's swimming in the Olympics, and it has its innocent little heart set on first place. Sunraku thought they could coexist since it wasn't that dangerous, but determined that the frog clearly wants to be turned into materials, his attack knocks the innocent little frog back, so he goes in to finish it off. He knows that the frog has slash resistance since his suit is made from its skin, and decides that he can only use bludgeoning piercing attacks. His ex is perfect for this, but his father's got all ruffled again when he realizes that the marsh's mud slows down a player's movement significantly. The poor little frog meets its demise at the hands of her beak-faced hero, but it was so easy for him that it didn't even cheer him up. Sunraku notices that more new players have been showing up lately because of summer break and determines that he must beat everyone to the race for materials. Afterwards, Sunraku, amazed, is the shop owner with all his ore. He's told that one of the pieces is really special and has 2 blades made from it. After some time they are ready and he finds out that they are god-tier weapons. This very helpful blacksmith states that doing something called raising a weapon is very important. Raising turns out to just mean upgrading, but it's a term used by blacksmiths that take their job way too seriously and think of the weapons they make as their children. Sunraku can think about is how the blacksmith is an NPC, but its speech and mannerisms are amazing. The NPC tells them not to leave town in armor like he has while it's dark, since nocturnal animals are dangerous. Little does he know our crazy bird friend is up to the challenge and plans to use those dangerous nocturnal animals to break in his new weapons and pal up some more levels. Back at the bridge we see that the snake has risen from the ashes like a phoenix with its hair more dazzling than 1,000 suns. Unfortunately, it is met by a powerful attack from Rei, who continues her search for Sunraku. This stalker detective searched the entire beginner's area for him but determined that he must have defeated the snake without stopping by town and is now in Secondia. She wonders if a new player could really accomplish such a thing but is confident that if anyone could it would be Sunraku. Elsewhere, our better-loving birdie fights Gollum from the Lord of the Rings and he goes over everything he has learned. First, monster spawns change based on if it's day or night. Most nocturnal monsters are aggressive and dangerous, as a weapon seller said that has helped him to make progress leveling up and to learn some new skills. However, this particular little beast seems a little too powerful. This one's movement and attacks are on a whole other level from the forest goblins. It's got lots of HP and incorporates feints into his fighting style like it's been doing it all its life, like it's fighting for Freedom Ring. Just then the little goblin lets out a crazy sounding battle cry and calls all its little goblin buddies. As if fighting one wasn't bad enough, now he has to face several, and he determined that he would have to run at full speed just to have a chance of getting away. However, just then Sunraku snaps himself out of that mentality and reminds himself that he's enjoying himself far too much to just run away. Sunraku may be a bird, but he is no chicken and takes on the challenge, as he defeats the annoying little goblins. Sunraku thinks about how he has just been having a lot of fun this entire time and telling himself that God tier games are pretty neat. However, this game has much more to offer. It is in this very moment as a gigantic ferocious monster appears. The Sunraku encountered the true Shangri-La frontier. Sunraku can't believe his eyes as he learns that it's a unique monster, and he braces himself for the fight of his life. The story continues. The time is currently early in the morning in the real world, and we get to see Rei's room where she is secretly in love with her Rakuro aka Sunraku. As we pass by the teddy bear in her room, we see that she is still playing Shangri-La Frontier, probably still looking to find Sunraku in the endgame world. That actually seems to be the case as the scene shifts to show the Shangri-La Frontier world, where Rei is investigating two players about some Sunraku's whereabouts. These two players, Reiji and Mia, are the ones who actually briefly saw Sunraku when he was trying to find a respawn point a few days ago. Reiji tells Rei that they have indeed seen him but unfortunately aren't in any contact with him. Mia gets hostile after seeing Rei's gigantic figure and takes out her bow and arrow, assuming she is a monster, but Reiji stops her just in time and explains to her that Rei is a player and not a monster. But Mia doesn't believe him, as she doesn't think such a scary looking creature can be an actual player. So Reiji takes his time to explain to her that once the players get more experienced and veteran, like they end up looking bulky and strong like Rei. Speaking of Rei, she doesn't seem to care whether other players think she is scarier or not, and she asks Reiji if he knows where Sunraku is gone, although Reiji isn't sure since he is very intimidated by Rei. He elaborates on the time when he saw Sunraku running inside the town when he was poisoned by the Python boss, learning that Sunraku is in the second town. It's as if Rei almost doesn't believe it, as she cannot imagine her being so close to her crush. She also can't crash as to how Sunraku was able to beat the ravenous Python boss without even visiting Starter Town and using the starter gear regardless. She thanks both Reiji and Mia for giving her this critical information and gives them an item named Teleport Coordinator as a gift in exchange. Now that the formalities are done, Rei takes her leave in a hurry and leaps away from there, literally at the speed of light. After she goes out of sight, Mia asks Reiji if he has any clue who she is. According to what Reiji knows, he recognized the emblem on Rei's cape, and that emblem belongs to a clan or a guild that focuses on fighting a unique monster like kicking the Night Slayer. Apparently, unique monsters are a special class of monsters with both a name and a title. Most monsters, when beaten, are captured, respawned after a certain time passes, but in the case of unique monsters, there is only one of each in the whole Shangri-La Frontier world. According to some speculations, there are 7 unique monsters in Shangri-La Frontier, and much information is not known about them. For each of these unique monsters, who are also known as colossi because of their colossal shape and size, the top players have formed clans focused on taking them out, and Rei, a member of one of these 7 clans, is the one who focuses on the colossi Lycagon. Speaking of Lycagon, our main character has conveniently run into that same colossi and is probably about to die his worst death in a game while he is getting his butt kicked. Reiji elaborates more about the unique monsters to Mia, telling her that even though the game has over 30 million players, not a single person has been able to defeat one single colossi, and that record isn't going to happen just because this newbie is the main character. As the clouds clear up from the skies, the moon gives better lighting and reveals what this unique monster looks like. Sunraku bets his balls that if he takes one hit from this colossi is good as death, but still he doesn't back off from the fight, as he wishes to see what this game is actually about. And as the colossi comes charging right at him with a paw attack, Sunraku blocks it with his dagger and takes the fight head on. He makes it clear that he isn't backing down, and that gets colossi more interested in killing him. As it prepares for another charge, Sunraku makes a bluff, saying that it won't even take a breather for him to kill this beast, even though his facial expressions and oversleeping say otherwise, as his heart begins to pump heavily. He reveals that he only managed to block Colossi's attack because of his skill called Perfect Parry, which lets him parry an enemy's physical attack if he executes it at the correct time. Realizing that his main dagger won't last much longer if he keeps parrying with it, Sunraku eclipses his previous red dagger and jumps straight at the colossi, dealing a critical hit. He keeps dodging around and lands another critical hit, which only infuriates the colossi even more. So it hides itself in the depths of the shadows and attacks Sunraku when he is not looking, but Sunraku still senses the attack coming from behind and dodges it without even taking a scratch, making the colossi so enraged that it disappears in the shadows once again. As it attacks Sunraku with an even stronger attack, he also increases his own speed and keeps landing critical hits on this game-breaking monster. The colossi keeps on playing with Sunraku and activates its hidden teleportation skill to have even better speed. Although Sunraku gets nervous this time around, he doesn't let that feeling get on top of his pure excitement and keeps pairing with the colossi for quite a while. Although the system has shown hundreds of times now that Sunraku has dealt tons of critical hits, he still doesn't see what damage he has caused to this colossi being. Moreover, because of all these attacks, Sunraku's second weapon has become totally chipped and has begun to fall apart, so he looks for a weak spot in the colossi before his weapons eventually run out, but even he knows that wouldn't be possible as he is way too out of the colossus right now, but that's what makes loner boys like him and me stand out, forcing ourselves on someone who is clearly way out of our league. Anyway, Sunraku, who actually likes being out of someone's league and loving the challenge, he gives another shout out to this god tier game, Shangri-La Frontier. The adrenaline rushes in him and he keeps on landing critical hits on the colossi, landing a straight hit into its eyes, but instead of the eyes being a weak spot, it seems to be made of unbreakable metal, as Sunraku doesn't even manage to make a scratch on it. This time the colossi gets too enraged and roars like a wolf, as if it is trying to call its pack mates here. The colossi roar's force is so strong that it even freezes Sunraku, who is midair. The clouds cover up the moon again and it causes the colossi to fade away in the shadows, but it doesn't disappear, and it attacks Sunraku again even more fiercely and cuts off both of his legs, stopping him from moving like a monkey. While Sunraku is still in disbelief as to how he got cut, Colossi waits for his death, and as Sunraku's health points lower to only 1, he admits that the Colossi is absurdly strong and also admits his own defeat, but Sunraku isn't the guy who is going to give up and tells Colossi that they will be meeting again soon, and at that time he will be the one who comes out as the winner. As he dies from the bite of Lycagon, he gets a curse applied to him called Lycagon's mark and responds inside his inn. As he gets up, he finds many of Lycagon's marks on his body, and although it looks cool, since it's a curse, no equipment can be equipped for the body where Lycagon has made a mark, meaning no more armor from Mr. Half-Naked Sunraku. He realizes that he is completely screwed because of a curse, and that his equipment has also been destroyed because he was wearing it while getting marked by Lycagon, realizing that the only way to get rid of the curse is to defeat Lycagon. Sunraku curses the game itself for a while, but as he begins to look like a weird creep again, he stops overreacting and reduces skill point division so that he no longer remains a weakling. But no matter how he rotates his points, he still remains as fragile as a glass, making him realize that because of this curse, he has become so fragile that he will die if he is hit by any monster, including slime. So he instead puts all of his experience points into his luck, hoping destiny is the only thing that will save him from this hellhole, and as he does so, a rabbit appears right in front of him, guiding him to the dead end. The rabbit then shows him a hidden door and reveals that it was actually an invitation from Rabbituza. Seeing this unique scenario, Sunraku remembers that he read that this game actually has a huge number of side quests involving NPCs, and this must be one of those unique side quests. So Sunraku hopes for the best and opens the door that leads him to a weird room. He realizes that he must have unlocked this unique scenario thanks to his sudden increase in luck, but what he doesn't notice is that the minimum requirement to accept this quest is level 80. Since he is only at level 28, this only means that his luck is about to go down into the ground. Anyway, being unaware of that, Sunraku who heads to the rabbit town called Rabbituza, where every single creature is a rabbit. The rabbit that gave him an invitation welcomes him to Rabbituza and tells him that everyone in Rabbituza has become a huge fan of him overnight. Apparently his being super weak but still having the courage to fight the Colossi has caused the rabbit people of Rabbituza to become fond of him. This white rabbit claims that because of his courageous nature, Sunraku is considered to be the embodiment of a Vorpal rabbit soul, and she too hopes that one day she can be someone so daring like him. Sunraku doesn't think that he should get this much respect, as he didn't even manage to make a scratch on the Colossi. But the white rabbit Emol tells him that it doesn't matter how weak he is, what matters is how endearing he has shown himself to be. According to Emol, because of his courageous nature, even the Colossi no longer treats him as a mere prey but as a fellow being. So in light of Sunraku's great deeds, the big boss of Rabbituza has insisted on speaking with him and has requested an audience with him. Now that the explanation part is done, Emol tells Sunraku to follow her and leads him to the place where her boss is. As they enter the palace of Rabbituza, Emol tells Sunraku that he is the first one who has gotten the chance to come here, meaning that this is indeed quite a unique scenario. What's more, Emol's boss doesn't look like a cute bunny and actually has the body of a bear more or less. This leaves Sunraku completely shocked and makes him wonder why he is even here. Story continue. Back at the game shop, Mana catches Rei the stalker extraordinaire on the prowl for her not-so-secret crush Rakuro, aka Sunraku. Rei tries to deny it, but the game shop owner isn't stupid and explains that it's summer vacation, so he's probably in Shangri-La Frontier. Rei admits that she hasn't been able to find her prey in-game because he skipped the first tutorial city entirely. Mana laughs as charting his own course is classic Rakuro and a typical trash game fanatic move. She explains that Rakuro will do things normal players won't do and run into all kinds of outrageous unique scenarios. Mana encourages the little stalker to step up her stalking game but surprises her when she tells Rei to admit her feelings to him. In the next scene we meet Rakuro Hizutome. She's about to begin her storyline but she leaves and we don't see her again. Meanwhile, Rakuro is reading about the trigger conditions for the Tour of Rabbituza unique scenario. He learns that if you defeat a monster of a higher level than you with Vorpal weapons equipped, a special Vorpal bunny will appear in any town and invite you to Rabbituza once you arrive. If you defeat the Laconian Python, a monster terrorizing their city, you'll learn the enchant Vorpal spell. The beginning part was right, but Rakuro explains that the rest of his unique scenario that happened the day before was nothing like that. He definitely didn't end up wrestling any pythons, instead it was the intimidating Yakuza boss-looking bunny, the sort of cuddly terror you would expect if the mob started to recruiting and petting zoos. A look back shows that Visash complimented Sunraku on his fight against the puppy. He admires Sunraku's Vorpal soul, but Sunraku can't help but be intimidated and wonders what in the world is a Vorpal soul. That Yakuza bunny then makes him an offer he can't refuse, the offer to get him up to snuff. Sunraku pretty confused at first, but then realizes that this must be a training quest and unique scenario training could yield the amazing buffs. He quickly accepts the offer but almost gets himself whacked when he calls Visash Anaki, as it made him very angry. Sunraku explains that it was just a little joke, but the giant Bugs Bunny on steroids doesn't say a word. Luckily for Sunraku, Visash has a sense of humor as he doesn't call a hit on him and lets out a big laugh instead. He acknowledges Sunraku as his underling and asks him to call him Vash. This is a privilege only given to those with potential, and Sunraku accepts as he thinks about how he is glad that they see Yakuza Bunny didn't have him swimming with the fishes. Vash tells them more than excited Emol that he will leave her curl in his hands, which of course the weird little bunny loves, and he promised to work super hard. Emol excited to take Sunraku on a tour of the palace, but Sunraku explains that he needs a break after a long playing session, but instead he thinks about how he also wants to look up more about unique scenarios and unique monsters. Sunraku glad to hear that he can register his respawn point there, and Emol offers to take care of it. Vash remembers that he forgot one thing and puts a Vorpal Soul collar on Sunraku. Sunraku is shocked to find that the collar gains 2.5 times the stat points when leveling up, but will only receive half the experience. He instantly tries to take it off, but Vash explains that it's no use. He won't allow Sunraku to take it off since extraordinary hardship is necessary for the weak to grow strong. He then reminds Sunraku to never forget the Vorpal Soul. The goofy little bunny tells him that it looks great on him, but Sunraku just can't believe that he has been saddled with another restriction. Back to the present, Rakuro acknowledged that even if it does have his experience, getting 2.5 times the staff points is a pretty big upside. It might even be a broken cheat code. No one on the forum seems to know about Visash or Emol, let alone the Vorpal Soul collar. No one's even found a unique scenario where you entered the palace of Rabbituza. He gets super hyped as he realizes how amazing it is to have found a unique scenario only he knows about. Unfortunately, he has an appointment with someone named Katso and loads up a game he hasn't logged into in forever. It's called Berserk Online Passion, or as some people calls it, Borp. It's a fighting game he once got deeply into, and naturally this means that it's a trash game. Its player base has waiting to less than 100 signings per day, leading many to wonder why the server is still running. This means that most of those who remain playing the game know each other. They're all of single-kind trash game enthusiasts. Sunraku meets with Katsu and asks for the rules of the fight. The fight begins though as Katsu does his best impression of Luffy without a straw hat and reminds Sunraku that anything goes. Katsu shows him his new move he worked out while Sunraku was focused on Faeria Online that he calls NSFW Tentacle Attack. Sunraku surprises see that Tattoo developed a new glitch and wonders how a madman like him got to be a pro gamer. Katsu is shocked since he is using a delay, but Sunraku is still somehow managing to block his attack. Katsu calls Sunraku the real madman for having such fast reaction speed, and Sunraku points out that his quick draw fist is the ultimate fighting style. He explains that as long as he has 12 frames, he can even counter boss insta-killer attacks unscathed. The two continue their fight that looks like something right out of One Piece, and people around begin to take notice. Though Borp is considered a trash game, their fight perfectly demonstrates the reason for Borp's niche appeal, and that is that any bug goes. Their Gatling gun punching continues, and Sunraku celebrates when he breaks off one of Katsu's fists. Unfortunately, this ends up being bad for him as that fist ends up ending the fight. Sunraku can't believe that the after-image fist textures were part of the hitbox, and he has announced the loser. Still, Sunraku thanks Katsu, as he has only been fighting NPCs recently and needed a good PvP. Katsu hoped that Sunraku was telling a bad joke when he learned that he was playing SLF, but Sunraku takes no shame in admitting that he is actually really into it. His little friend still doesn't understand, so Sunraku explains SLF has crazy strong monsters called the Seven Colossi. They are so rare that the entire player base has only managed to get the names of 4 of them. No one has ever beaten a single one of them since the game started. Sunraku reveals that he found one of these beasts and it wasted him. With that, Katsu was convinced and he decides that he might to give SLF a try. Hearing Sunraku talk about it has piqued his interest, and he admits that none of his IRL friends played Borp anyway. That isn't all, as a certain person also plays SLF, and Katsu sent this person a message to tell them that Sunraku was playing it too. Sunraku has no clue who this person is, but we see that it's some purple-haired girl. This chick is fighting a bunch of guys when she received the message, and she said she always thought Sunraku had some kind of condition where he would die if he ever stopped playing trash games. She finishes up all her opponents, and we see that she has the player kill badge for ending all those real players. She seems glad there's Sunraku playing SLF and decides that she will have to also gently guide him through it. Sunraku returns to Second Ale and thinks about how handy Amol is for being able to use a teleport gate. He feels pretty good and wonders if coming from playing Borp is the reason that his SLF avatar is so easy to move in. Amol wonders where Sunraku wanted to leave so soon since there is so much to do in Rabbituza. Sunraku explains that while he really wants to explore Rabbituza, getting to Third Rima before the crowds are pouring in is more important. There has been a huge uptick in players since summer break started. The forums report that the Star Town First Tia is packed to the gills with new players. Second Ale won't be far behind, which means there are going to be logjams at facilities and fights over monsters and mining spots. Also, Third Rima is a pretty big city, so if he's going to go all out in the Rabbituza unique scenario, then he would like to do it from a big city with plenty of breathing room. Amol completely agrees, but Sunraku to hear that Amol hilariously didn't understand a single thing. Amol is still more than glad to help, and Sunraku is shocked to find that he can add NPCs in his party. Amol explains that Sunraku can't retry Rabbituza or the palace without him, but Sunraku thought that the little free NPC would just be tagging along. Sunraku accepts Amol party request and finds that the little bunny has higher stats than he does. He's too concerned about it though, since he is confident that he will pass Amol no time. Sunraku pretty sure that the Lycagon's mark is the trigger for that unique scenario, and wonders if Amol is the game's way of making up for it. The two prepare to head out but are stopped by 2 girls who think that the talking little bunny is adorable. They want to know if they can get it as a pet 2 per shot to realize that Rakuro was one half-naked bird pervert. Sunraku realizes that he was so distracted that he didn't stop to think about how Amol's NPC attached to a never-before-seen unique scenario. Since he has it all to himself for now, he would like to keep it a secret at least until he can clear it. The dumb little bunny introduces himself and tries to chat it up with the ladies. However, Sunraku stops him and yells out that it was just his ventriloquism act as he runs away. Unfortunately for him, one of the nosy girls takes a picture of them and decides that they will have to ask the forums where to get one of the talking bunnies. The two get away from all the crowds, and Amol admits to not being the high-level athlete looks like, as he is not so well suited for all the running around. Amol eagerly awaits her next task, and Sunraku explains that he wants to confirm something. He wants to test the part of his curse that says that monsters over lower level than the afflicted character will flee. Luckily for them, a lower-leveled monster appears to attack them and it runs away as soon as it sees the curse. This is perfect, as Sunraku chases after it like some kind of bird-cheetah hybrid. A brilliant gamer doesn't just pursue it mindlessly though, as he has a plan to chase it into an obstacle. With perfect timing, Sunraku throws his weapon as soon as it changes direction. With it stopped, Sunraku attacks it with the fastest speed he can muster. Sunraku points out that he received an attack bonus from inertia and law of physics taken for granted in the real world, and very few games actually try to replicate it. He admires how this game models reality as close as it can, and Emol arrives to celebrate with intense energy as always. He admires Sunraku's fighting skills as he could hardly tell which one was the monster. With Sunraku test complete, he has decided what needs to be done now. The plan is to ignore all the scrubs and head straight to the area boss. Emol marvels at the plan's simplicity and the two take off excited to take on whatever the future holds. Unfortunately, just seconds later we see that Sunraku is extremely frustrated. They have arrived at the area where the boss should be, but there's only swamp as far as the eye can see. The little rabbit is just worried about his sweet-looking clothes, and Sunraku thinks about what Emol told him on the way there. Emol explained that the area boss is a monster named Mud Digger. Sunraku try out of the ground to attack, so it's crucial to find a way to hold it in place. Sunraku realizes that he has to fight this Mud Digger in a swamp. That means he might be in big trouble. Just then, Emol senses the beast and Sunraku has Emol get on his shoulder. It's incredibly difficult to move in the swamp, so they just barely manage to move out of the way as a giant monster emerges. We learn that a characteristic of Shangri-La Frontiers is that its swamp terrain forces a walking state. This means that one leg always remains trapped in the muds until the other foot reaches the bottom. This ferocious beast is clearly very powerful, as a recommended party size for fighting it is 4. Sunraku realizes that he might have made a huge mistake, as this is the worst matchup possible. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. Want next part? Subscribe the channel and turn on notification bell.